Do we go in hard, boys and girls? Do it, you coward. Yeah, sounds about right. All right. Doing it live. Are you sure you want to set the difficulty to very hard? Let's earn it. Let's earn it. Dude. Damn, they even got the 7 theme song in there. I love that. I just love that this much, like, attention was given. Because, y'all, here's the deal. This is a big deal. Not just because it's Sephiroth, but because it's Final Fantasy VII. And for those of you that don't know, 7, yes, it is regarded as, like, not only the game changer for Final Fantasy, especially over here in North America and in the greater part of the world outside of Japan. But the thing is, it also represents not only Final Fantasy going mainstream, it also represents a very ugly period of history between Nintendo and what we then knew as Squaresoft. Because prior to Final Fantasy VII, pretty much all the Final Fantasy games were, like, exclusive with Nintendo. Like, or at least their debut was on Nintendo. Like, Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3 were on the NES and the Famicom. Final Fantasy 4, 5, and 6 were all on Super Famicom. Even Final Fantasy Legend, which was actually the Saga games, were only on Game Boy. Final Fantasy Adventure, which was actually the start of the Mana series, you know, but it still bore the name, was only on Game Boy. So, like Final Fantasy was just, like, one of those games that was just, like, you wanted to play Final Fantasy, you had to have a Nintendo console to do it. And then the relationship just broke down. The relationship just broke down. You know, it just broke down, man. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that how Nintendo acted between them and Sony, and them ditching Sony, you know, ditching them at the last second, you know, and whatnot. You know, to go with Philips and that bogus thing, which is why we never got that Super Nintendo PlayStation hybrid console. Square left them because Nintendo wouldn't get off the cartridges and go to a disc-based system like they wanted to and whatnot. It was a whole big mess. And so, for a long period of time, Nintendo did not get any Final Fantasy games. Like, they wouldn't get another Final Fantasy game until, like, you know, the GBA GameCube era. Like, the Nintendo 64 was completely devoid of Final Fantasy, and that was a long period of time. But as far as, like, a brand new numerical Final Fantasy, Nintendo did not get one for a long time. And so when they brought Cloud into Smash, back in the last installment of Smash for Wii U and 3DS, that was a huge deal. Like, it was a huge deal. And it didn't choke about Dungeon Gone. I'm talking about a numerical Final Fantasy. Even then, the relationship was not very good. You know, it wasn't. You know, but anywho, so I mean, so when they brought Cloud into Wii U, 3DS Smash Bros, like, it was a big deal. And it really, like, showed that, because, I mean, at that point, Square Enix had been putting stuff on Nintendo consoles for a while at that point. But the fact that it was Cloud, that particular Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy VII at that point had never been re-released on a Nintendo platform since it came out on PlayStation 1. It had only been available on PlayStation Sony consoles, PSP, Vita, PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4. It had only been available on Sony platforms. And that was, or you know, PC, of course, but, you know, because there was a PC release. But as far as the consoles are concerned, this was the first time, besides Fiat Rhythm and whatnot, but to the fact that it was him, the fact that it was him that they chose to represent Final Fantasy on Super Smash Bros., one of the biggest fighting games in the world. Like, it was like world shattering. It really was. It was a big deal, and it really like restored a lot of faith with Nintendo and Final Fantasy fans. It really did. And then, you know, they started releasing, you know, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10. You know, a lot of them started getting re-released on Nintendo platforms. So, again, that's a little bit of the history, but pardon me for gushing here, but it's just so cool that with all of that happening, and now the biggest Final Fantasy boss, and I don't care how you feel about this, but this is a stone cold fact. Sephiroth is the biggest and one, if not the most popular and the most impactful Final Fantasy boss out there. I don't care if you like Kefka more or anything else. This is a fact. FF7 was the game changer Final Fantasy. There's a reason characters like Sephiroth, Cloud, Tifa, Aeris, there's a reason they are so beloved. And you might like other Final Fantasies better than 7. And you might say 7 is overrated, but this cannot be disputed. This is not an opinion. This is not bias. This is a fact. This is a fact. Final Fantasy VII was one of those games, one of those rare few games that we can honestly say changed gaming as we know it. That is a fact. You cannot dispute this. I don't care if it's not your favorite. It's true. Deal with it. With that being said, let's go get our ass kicked.